Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project with Lalo and Bob. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Let's jump right into that weekly dose of things you can disagree with. Take it away, guys.
All right. Good morning, man. Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project. Another Sunday morning. About an hour late because Zencaster wasn't working and Lalo slept in, but that's no big deal, right?
Yeah,
Morning,
nothing
dude.
out of the ordinary.
One of us is either getting a phone call at Home Depot, which I did last time. Whatever. How you been, man?
Pretty good. Pretty
Yeah, I
good.
didn't see much
Complain.
this week.
Yeah, we've been moving a lot of stuff at work just for the whole like split that's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Getting a lot of stuff ready and then just like my regular job duties that I normally do.
Yeah, I spent the first part of the week, the first 2 days in jury duty, all the way up until Wednesday. Well, I guess Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday morning.
Oh, last week?
Yeah, I got involved. I got involved in some jury selection, and
My brother was there. You probably might have seen him, but just didn't realize it was him.
your brother was
Uh,
there.
yeah, he was a jury duty to all of last week, Monday through Friday. He actually got selected to the jury. He was an alternate juror.
Okay, then
So he
I
got
did see
the
him. I was in there when they selected the alternates.
Oh, okay, yeah. He was
Yeah.
like there was only two alternate jurors, I think,
Hmm.
and one was like an older lady, and he was like the younger looking kid. So
Okay.
he was the younger looking kid.
Isn't that fucking weird how the world is so small when we run into people that, you know, it's just
Yeah.
like I was watching I was watching this YouTube thing, this short film the other day on YouTube called something about two guys who meet five times, and it goes through their
Mhm.
entire life. They see each other when they're children and then when they're old men, and they never, really realize that they were the person that they had been with their entire life. It's really odd if you spend your life in like Bakersfield or any town, you're going to run into people that know other people that you don't know.
Yeah. Well, have you ever heard of 6 degrees of separation?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I mean, basically, for like the people that don't know, that's like this theory that they say that any two people in the world can be connected to each other within six like acquaintances, 6 people that they know.
yeah.
So, I know a dude that knows a guy that knows a girl that knows this person that knows fucking
My
Kim
ex-wife.
Jong-un. We went two different ways right there.
Not really.
But
There's that 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon that people play. That eat anything in any movie can be boiled down to Kevin Bacon.
yeah, so that really goes to show you how small the world is. And
Well,
I
there's
get those like instances all the time, like I'll see somebody or I'll meet somebody, and then I'll talk to somebody else and be like, oh yeah, I know them, or like, oh, I went to school with them, I saw them here, blah blah. And it's just like every time that happens to me, I'm like, damn, small world.
It is. It really is. There's only what 7 billion people, but you're
That's
gonna
it.
meet 25 of them in your life probably.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of movies like that. There's Mind the Gap, and where two people are interacting all day long and they don't have any fucking clue.
Hmm. Like, have you ever seen the movie Vantage Point?
No.
It has fuck, what's that dude's name? I can't remember their names right now, but it's a really good movie. It's like this presidential like assassination, and it's like from the view of like 7 different people. Like, you'll
Okay.
replay the same event, like the assassination event, like
Mhm.
7 times, but each one from their vantage point.
Yeah.
Um, and
Okay.
then and then it shows you how like at the end they like intertwine, um, to like figure out who did it and like how it happened and what went down. It's a
Uh,
pretty cool movie.
the Japanese director Akira Kurosawa.
No, I don't know them.
Okay, he's really famous. He did Seven Samurai and things like that. But he has a movie where 7 people are telling the story about a murder, and you get to put it together throughout the movie, and 10 conversations about one thing where Matthew McConaughey runs over a person in the road, and it's 10 different stories about the vantage points from that. It's like I said, it's like you said, it's a small fucking world, man, and every one of our actions has reverberations throughout so many people's lives, and we never even realize it. And that, kind of brings me what I was thinking about today to talk about is like, you can do a tiny thing and make these huge changes in another person's life and not know it, or you can do a huge thing like shoot up a bunch of fucking people and change everything. So did you hear about this morning? You
This
didn't sleep.
morning, no.
Sunday morning, Miami-Dade. There's a party this morning, and a
Hmm.
white Nissan Pathfinder pulls up and just starts shooting indiscriminately into the crowd, kills 2 people, injures 20. So we have another one this morning, man.
Oh, damn.
Damn, I
20
know. Yeah, injured 20, killed 2. And
at a
then,
rap concert, it says right here.
yeah,
I'm looking it up right now.
yeah.
Um, Damn, that's crazy. That sounds like a drive-by type of thing.
hmm Not
There's a
like,
shit ton of people.
there's that kind of shooting where you just pull up and just start mowing people down the crowd. And then there's that San Jose motherfucker that,
It's like calculated and
he was calculated and focused. And they said, I heard yesterday that he ran into somebody that he didn't know. And he said, I like you. Get out of here.
wow, that's
Yeah,
like chilling.
it is, man.
It's
That you could,
there's like this meme um that I've seen before where it's like it says like when you become friends with the weird kid, so when he shoots up the school, he doesn't go after you.
right.
And it's like a screenshot of a text thread, and it's like, the kid texting you like, hey, don't go to school tomorrow. And the guys are like, thanks man, appreciate it.
Not funny, but hilarious. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, it's crazy how like you said, those little things can affect, big changes, kind of, like the whole like butterfly effect
Right.
type thing.
A butterfly flapping its wings in the South Seas creates a hurricane in somewhere else.
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember, a few years ago there was like this shooting here in Bakersfield where this dude went around and shot like and killed like 5 or 6 people. Um, he like drove around to different places like at a business, and then he went to like somebody's house and like killed 2 people there, and then he like killed himself at the end after the police like chased him down.
That was here in town?
Yeah, that was here in town.
Oh, I, Christ, I missed that one.
What was like a big thing, like a big story, and I remember I seen it like it was a weekday, and I seen it like in the afternoon like news cycle, like I
hmm
saw it on Facebook and stuff like that. And I was just thinking like, damn, that's fucking crazy, like here in town. And I just went to bed like normal, and then the next morning I woke up and I was like getting ready for my class because I had an 8 a.m. class, and my mom, she like burst into my room like just bawling her eyes out. And I mean, I don't think that's ever a good sign.
Right.
And she tells me that one of the people that was killed was my uncle.
Your uncle was killed in a mass shooting?
Yeah, here. Uh, yeah, it was like a few years ago. I think it was. I
Damn,
can't remember
dude.
exactly what year it was. Um, it says right here, 2018. Yeah. So basically, what had happened was the dude. It was like they worked at this trucking company, right? Him and his wife. They worked at the same trucking company, and he uh he had suspicion that his wife was like cheating on him with like some of the employees there. Like he was just very paranoid about it, because
Yeah,
like they worked
apparently.
together, and like he would see like he would see her talking to like other people, but I mean, she worked there, so she can't just ignore everybody. So this dude, and then they were getting a divorce. So he was convinced that, they were getting a divorce to like, so she could like leave him for another dude there.
Wow.
And I think that just made him like snap or something. So he went around, he had like this big ass fucking like revolver, like probably like a 50 cal revolver or something. And he like showed up to work one day with his wife like at gunpoint. He like kidnapped her and was like, taking her to work. And he was like, show me like tell me who you've been like sleeping with. And obviously, she didn't say anything because like she was in like, as far as we know, she wasn't doing anything. So she didn't like, point anybody out. So he just went around like shooting all the people like he suspected. And I guess one of them was my uncle. And because he like called them up to like the office, of the business. And like one of the dudes, he like came around the corner. And as soon as he got there, the dude just like shot him. And then my uncle was like probably like a few steps behind him. And he saw him get shot. So he just took off running. And
Fuck,
the
dude.
guy like chased him down. And then he eventually, the guy got in his car and he chased down my uncle because he was on foot. And I think for me, like one of the saddest part was where he worked, my uncle, there was like, it's on Weed Patch Highway. It's like right off the freeway. There's a gun store right there. So he like, that like came into his mind and he booked it to the gun store. It's like, fuck yeah, like there's people there with guns.
Yeah.
Um, so he ran to there, but it was closed because it was a little bit after 5.
Oh
So it was
man.
closed. And it was all gated up. And then that's where the dude like got like caught up to him and he like shot him in the chest. But I mean, it's a fucking 50 caliber bullet. That shit's gonna, tear a big ass hole into you.
Yeah, dude.
And then I think after that, he went to another employee's home and he shot and killed him. And then his older daughter was there. That the employee's daughter was there, and she tried, to defend her dad. And then he shot and killed the dude's daughter. And then he took off. And then that's when the police started chasing him. And then they caught up to him. They like cornered him into like some like junkyard. And that's where he just like shot himself in the chest right there, and then killed himself. And I
Man.
remember like hearing, like I said the day before, like the day it happened, I was like, damn, that's fucking crazy, like here in town. And then, you wake up the next morning to find out that it's like somebody that you knew. So it was my dad's sister's husband.
Oh, that's
Um,
fucking terrible, dude. I did not know that.
so um, it's pretty, like you said, it's a small world, a small world. Like everything could fucking happen in an instant, and then next thing you know, like your whole life is like flipped upside down. For what, like 5 or 6 families right there in that instance.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, even more than that, because I just got Kevin Baconed. Because I had a mass shooting had not touched me at all. I mean, it was always someone else, and I didn't know. But now I know somebody whose family member's been caught in a mass shooting.
yeah.
Fuck. Well, that
So
just
it's
changed my day.
so I mean it's crazy to think about. Like, do you remember that Vegas shooting at that concert?
Yeah,
When there was like fucking like 50 people dead.
yeah.
Like I
Did
knew
you see how many people were wounded in that?
there were probably
Fucking
like hundreds.
the 500 people and 50, I think it was
Yeah,
58 dead and like 543 wounded.
yeah. Because I mean, this dude's like up on a fucking perch,
Oh
just
yeah.
like mowing at people, and it's like a big ass crowd. Like there's like they're sitting ducks at that point.
Yeah, he's higher ground. He's got a view of everybody.
And a
He,
lot of people, if you watch the videos of when the shooting began, um, they didn't like take off, like they didn't disperse. They all kind of just duck
hunkered
because
down.
they didn't think, oh, the dude's up top. They probably thought, he's like walking like at our level. But then they started to realize like, no, these bullets are like coming from above. And then by that time there was how much damage done.
Yeah. Was that with this year? Was that 2021 or 2020?
No, I think that was like
Oh, okay.
19 or 18.
Well, man,
But I
I
mean,
was,
even then, like I knew people that were thinking about going to that show. I had some friends that they lived in Vegas, and they wanted to go to the show, and they just last minute they just didn't go. So it's like it's crazy to think about how one little decision could like fuck up your whole life, or in some cases save your life.
yeah, after I had that bad car accident, my kid got killed. I fucking tortured myself with that. And I know a lot of people do, it's like you keep thinking, well, if I'd have just stopped to tie my shoe, just something, I wouldn't have been in that spot at that particular moment. But you can't do that to yourself because everything you do changes the future. So how can you, avoid bad things? You can't. It's
Yeah,
impossible. So it took long time for me to get over that if I'd have just stopped for a second. So, but the culture we live in, man, I'm starting, I hear your story about your uncle, and when we're talking about mass shootings and we're talking about Miami-Dade this morning, I'm getting to the point where I'm a little paranoid now. I mean, I don't mean in a bad way. I think everybody in our culture is becoming hyper vigilant. You got to be.
yeah,
It's everywhere. I mean, you just said here in Bakersfield. I happened to miss that one. I don't know why, but good God, man. I don't know how to even look at it. It before I was looking this morning, there's over 10 mass shootings per week already in 2021. We've got 194 mass shootings in 18 weeks, man. That's fucking crazy.
yeah. And it's to the point where I think a lot of people are just like, I don't like, we don't fucking know like what to do at this point when it comes to like trying to fix it,
Yeah,
like you could go over the regular talking like fucking gun control laws, and you know just the usual shit that just people bring up every time one of these shootings happens.
yeah.
But it's like, to me, I feel like we're kind of becoming almost desensitized to like mass shootings. It's
Well,
just
yeah.
a norm nowadays because it just happens. Like we just wait till the end of the year to see like, oh, how many were there in total this year, instead of like how many, or like what can we do to prevent it from happening and
Yeah,
actually
I
do these things,
agree.
not just talk about them and fight over them, and then at the end nothing really changes.
Well, w- yesterday I was in. Well, let me back up, dude. We could talk about three, right? Three different kinds right now. Miami-Dade, where it was like, I don't know anybody, I'm just shooting into the crowd. And San Jose, where I know the people and I'm going to avoid people that aren't what I consider guilty in my mind, and I'm going to let them walk. And then you've got that one that was in LA last week where that fucking idiot just shoots up that car and kills that little boy in the back seat.
Hmm.
So there's three different kinds right there, three different mindsets, three different kinds of guns. The one in San Jose was registered. I'm sure the one in Miami-Dade wasn't, and the shooting in LA, you don't know. So you've got three different kinds of shootings, three different kinds of mentalities. And then yesterday I was down in Rosedale, and there was one of those fucking people waving flags, and every other flag was a picture of an AR-15 that says "Come and try and take it from me."
Was it
So
on
California,
Callaway?
Callaway, yeah, no,
Yeah,
not
I
Callaway.
seen.
It's on
Oh, okay.
Coffee and Rosedale.
By like the Red Lobster.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always like little flag stands right there.
So how can you have 194 mass shootings in 18 weeks? 7,500 people were killed this year already, and go down in a public place and wave fucking flags that have AR-15s on them. You are not, that's not right to me. It's just, It's just like guns are not the problem, but the only thing to me that ties all those things together are fucking guns.
Yeah.
Because you've got three different, like I said, three different kinds of mentality, three different kinds of shootings, three different situations, and the only thing that's similar about all of those situations and all those people is they had a fucking gun. Now, what are we going to do? And like you said, you could go through the fucking talking points again, but that doesn't do shit, man. That doesn't do shit.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where a lot of people, until it like affects them personally to some degree, um, it's gonna be like the same mindset for them, you know?
Yeah.
Like I remember I saw an interview one time with like business owners when it came to like the whole like mask mandates and like COVID stuff. And there was this one he was like a restaurant owner, like a bar owner. And you could tell he was like it's one of those things like not to be stereotypical, but like you could look at him and be like, this dude's a hardcore like Trump supporter just by looking at him.
Right.
But when they were asking him about like masks and you know enforcing it, he said he was like it's mandated in his restaurant. Like he's all like, you know, if they don't like it, like they could go somewhere else. But you could tell like the way he was answering the questions. And you know, I'm kind of just making assumptions here, but for me, like I'm pretty good at like reading like body language and like demeanor and tone and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Sure.
And I just had this feeling like this dude like was affected by this shit. Like he probably had a family member die or something because there's no way. Like he was just very like almost kind of like numb when answering the questions about wearing masks and stuff. And he like kept looking down, you know, like he wouldn't look at the camera. So you could tell it was probably one of those topics where like at first he didn't give a fuck and like, uh, masks are fake and blah, blah, blah. But like once it hit home, it like, it really, it changes you.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing for like guns and stuff, or for like most issues. Like if when like directly affects you, or it impacts you, that's really when that switch flips in your mind, and it kind of sometimes it makes you like change your views on things.
Yeah, it does. It, but at the same time, there are those people who, they're hardcore, like take the gun situation. They're hardcore gun people, and somebody close to them gets shot, and they're still like, it wasn't the gun's fault, and they become some sort of hero of the movement. I've seen that happen more times than I'd like to say, but I would hope in most cases, even like I said, that guy probably was hardcore against masks, and then something happened, and he didn't want to change his mind, but he did. So I got
Yeah.
respect. I got respect for people that will change their mind,
Hmm.
but I don't have any respect for people that will look in the face of thousands of people dead and still wave an AR-15 flag. I can't see it.
And I mean, I get the sentiment behind it. Like you said, the regardless of what happens, that they don't blame the gun itself.
Yeah.
Um, and for the most part, I don't want to say I agree with them, but like I'm more on it's the ability to get a gun, like how easy it is for certain people to get a gun, and then the actual people themselves getting that gun.
Yeah.
Uh, that I think is the bigger issue, um, if that makes sense. Like um, just getting a gun in some states is like easier than fucking voting. So
In
I don't
14
think
states now, really easier.
I don't think that should be. I don't think that should ever be a thing. Like in Texas, I think they just passed that law, or they're about to pass it, where you don't need a license to like open carry, which means you don't need to go take that training course to get the license, which means everybody and their mom could just walk around with the gun all the time. Uh,
Oh man.
which I mean, it'll look cool for their Republican base, but all you need is like one or two outliers. Um, there's crazy people everywhere, so you just need one or two to like really take advantage of all these like little loopholes and all these, different laws, and that's all it takes for it to, set somebody off and make them go like on a rampage.
Well, there's somebody close to both of us that we know, and is a hardcore gun nut, and I don't, and I say that lovingly, gun nut in this case. But I asked him the other day, I was like, you know about the new Texas law, and there's several states that are doing it now. I said, you know about the new Texas law? It's like, if you can walk upright, you can go ahead and carry. And he was like, no, man. I'm just like, yeah, it's open carry, concealed carry, doesn't matter. Welcome to Texas. And even he and his zeal to keep guns within the culture, he was like, that's too much, because you can't give a gun to a person that's not trained and say, here, go ahead and carry it. They're going to shoot themselves. They're going to shoot something accidentally. It's going to be a Barney Fife moment, where they're trying to pull the weapon out of the holster and they shoot their foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a car, which we've made in this podcast. You and I have talked about several times, cars and guns. If you have to register your car, why don't you have to register your gun? If you have to take training to drive a car, why not to carry a gun? It's just that simple. Why don't we? There it is, Lalo. Another fucking talking point that's not going to work. There are 393 million guns in the United States, brother.
That's more than people in the United States.
Yeah, that's more than people in the United States. So what the fuck are we going to do? You want something easy to get? Yeah, it's a gun. I could probably go get one today if I wanted to bad enough.
And like how we were talking about those talking points, how they're kind of like they don't lead to anything. I think it's because a lot of people on opposing sides refuse to actually listen to them.
Right.
They'll just hear what you have to say, and then they'll brush it aside, and then they'll believe what they believe.
Sure. Well, after that Las Vegas shooting, it's like, well, we need to get rid of bump stocks. How many people even knew what a fucking bump stock was before that?
Yeah, I didn't even know what that was.
Exactly. I'm a gun person. I was been in the military. I didn't know what a fucking bump stock was, and I knew that taking them away wasn't going to do shit. It's not going to do shit in eliminating the large round magazines. It's not going to do shit. How many are there out there already? So
yeah, it's guns will never be like removed from American culture. At least I don't believe so. They're like so deep ingrained,
right.
in like who we are and what this country is, that I don't think they'll ever go away. And I mean, I don't see anything really wrong with that, but we can't just be like this fucking like gun crazy like country, if that makes sense.
No,
Like
it
it's
makes total
just
sense.
there should be a limit, to where like, okay, like, yeah, you're allowed to have guns, and that's fine, but at the same time, like you said, just like a driver's license, you have to be trained, you have to pass a test, and you have to get these thorough background checks. And not just that, but I think it should be like continuous, like every few years, you have to retake your little eyesight test for your driver's license.
Yeah.
If your eyesight's getting worse, well, you have to go get glasses first, and then we'll give you your new license. It should be like that too for guns, in my opinion. Like, yeah, you pass the training class, but come back, like every year or every 2 years, and let's check you again. Let's make sure you're still like fit, because people change, man. People go through shit in life, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, it changes them. Like, like even us at work, like, I've heard people talk of like clients that we work with that, were perfectly fine. And then something happened to them, and they just, a switch flipped in their head. And, that could happen to anybody. Traumatic experiences happen to everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
everybody is not as resilient as everyone else.
right. So
People take a hit and they go down. Some
yeah,
people take the exact same hit and they just keep going.
right. So you might be perfectly fine in owning a gun today, but in 5 years when your wife leaves you and your fucking all your dogs died, and all this shit happens to you, and you're severely depressed and suicidal, maybe
Yeah.
it's time to take a look at that gun permit. And
And your neighbor comes by and says, "Hey man, can you turn that fucking music down?" And then that's it. That's the thing. You're like, I can turn it down in a minute. Hold on."
yeah, so it's one of those things, but that's too you know quote radical for some people to think about, because to them, no, they just want their guns and that's it, leave me alone.
Yeah. Have you bought a gun here in California?
No, I personally haven't. No.
It's a fucking joke.
Is
It's
it?
a joke. The test was, I don't know, if I remember, it's like 20 questions, and you get to study for it right there, and they give it to you, and it's so. It, oh, if you have ever owned a weapon in your life, you can pass the test. If you look at the paper for 20 minutes, you can pass the test. It's nothing, and the background check is good. I mean, if you've ever been in trouble, you're not going to get a gun, but like you said, I'm not in trouble on Tuesday. I could get in trouble on Wednesday, and now I have a gun. And
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to like small gaps like that, I think it's kind of hard to regulate, just
yeah,
because you're not going to be passing, they're not going to like be background checking you like every week, but I
right.
think like a yearly thing, uh or at the most like 2 years, um
Well, it's even 4 years for your
should
driver's
be implemented.
license.
Yeah, but I mean, because like I said, we can't do it like every other week. That's just way too many resources.
Yeah.
um but I personally don't see anything wrong with that. And I think the fear of a lot of people, especially in certain parts of the country, is that if something like that was to happen, um they would like deem them like unfit to own a gun,
Right.
um and then they might get taken away. So for some people, it might get taken away, but that's simply because they were deemed, whether psychologically or whatever the reason may be, unfit to own a gun.
I don't
Um,
think we can do that though, Lalo, because what's the baseline, and who's going to agree what the baselines are?
I
You
would
know,
probably just leave that to like the professionals. And I
which,
mean, there's like these people that they could profile people.
yeah,
Um, there's profiles for everything, for schizophrenic, sociopath, all these things.
yeah, driving in Compton. Yeah, I know.
So like, there's ways to determine like if you're okay, if you're not okay. And it might be a little tedious, but at the end of the day, like what's tedious work compared to fucking people dying like in the masses every year? And I
Yeah, I
mean,
agree.
you're never, well, I don't want to say never, but I don't think mass shootings are going to go away anytime soon, regardless of what we do. You could fucking outright just ban guns, like all of them,
Right.
and you will still get mass shootings guaranteed. But it's more about um, limiting the possibility of those things happening. To When it comes to mass shootings, I think to the greatest extent you possibly can, because those are mass shootings, those are people's lives, they're people dying,
Yeah.
and those are very preventable deaths. There's some things you can prevent, but there's some things you really can. And I think this falls in that category of things you can prevent, and we should be doing everything we can to prevent those things. you know and people would like to talk about, oh well, it's going to start there, and then eventually like nobody's going to have guns. And even if guns are illegal, like criminals are criminals and they'll still get guns, 'cause they don't care because they're criminals. And like, yeah, I've heard all those like talking points before, but that's the point. Like, you make it hard for one, like regular people to get a gun legally, you know. And by hard, I mean, you know, like vigorous, like testing and training and, you know, background checks and, you know, waiting periods, all these things make them actually mean something and make them matter, you know. And then on the other end, you, but, you know, by doing that, it's going to limit like the amount of like illegal weapons and, you know, close all these little ass loopholes where, you know, oh, well, if you're a licensed dealer, you know, you have to get a background check to sell to anybody. But, you know, private sale, private party, like you can sell that shit to anybody in some states and, you know, nobody would ever know.
Yeah, all this really started after Reagan when he got shot and they passed the Brady bill. And you got to think that what is that, the early 80s, and nothing's changed. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And now we're in this point where like I said, we have 393 million guns, 350 million people. And everybody's like, well, we need stricter gun control. But the problem is, did you know the San Jose shooter passed the background check and every one of the weapons he used in that was legally purchased?
I
Yeah.
mean, that just tells me that the way these background checks and these things are done isn't the best it could be.
Yeah.
Like you said, you know, that test was fucking easy as hell for you. And, you know, you could pass it in 20 minutes of studying a book.
Right.
Like, I don't think it should be that easy. It should be, you know, pretty difficult and the training should be extensive because at the end of the day, it's a gun you're buying. You're not buying, you know, a toy. You're not, you know, getting your driver's license. It's a gun. Like a gun has very limited uses.
Hmm.
Most of them involve, you know, destruction and damage to other people.
Shooting another human being. Yeah.
So, if you're gonna have that sort of tool in your possession, I think it should come with like great responsibility and great like training and, you know, just everything that comes with that. Because it's
Wholeheartedly agree. But you
and
know,
people
it's
don't see it that way. That's why we are where we are today. To them, it's just a right. You know, it's a gun. Like, you know, it's just part of their life. It's how they grew up. You know.
sure. I got there's my motorcycle guy. Love that guy. Yeah. It's not just the guns though, dude. It's I was reading this morning. There's been like 500 passenger misconduct incidents just on Southwest Airlines in a month. And I think it was this week, that woman didn't want to wear her seatbelt and she stood up and knocked the two teeth out of an airline. What do you call? I used to call them stewardesses. What do you call them now?
Um,
Yeah, you know what I'm talking
yeah.
about. Yeah,
The
the
people that
language the
with the
language
peanut
changed. I didn't. Okay, sorry. But here's a passenger's like, I don't want to put my seatbelt on.
flight attendant. There
The
you go.
flight attendant says, well, you have to put it on. She stands up and knocks her fucking teeth out. Now, it's not just guns. We and I we're a violent culture. We're a violent society. And then you got people like and I Trump, let's just call it what it is. Trump, Green, that fucking Gates guy, and all these people are driving this conspiracy mongering paranoid thing that you know the 2020 election was stolen and Marjorie Taylor Greene with her Holocaust shit, and it's just this part of our culture that's just I don't want to say sick, but I do want to say desperately in need of help.
It's unwell, like AOC
Unwell.
put it.
A great way to describe them. They're unwell.
I think if you ask me, one of the biggest issues with the Republican Party is their inability to hold themselves accountable for anything.
It- yeah.
You know, I've read, you know, since this whole like Israel like Palestine thing started, or not started, but like since it like ramped up a few weeks
I was
ago,
going to say like 5,000 years ago. Is that? It's like-
I've seen like AOC and like all these people on the left like bash just shit on fucking Biden for like
Yeah.
supporting Israel,
Yeah.
and you will never get that on the right. There's like you said, there's people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz. Like, have you seen what they're saying at these fucking rallies that they're doing right now?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Um, like if like, how can you hear that and then you're fucking over here, Kevin McCarthy, like the leader of like the caucus and like pretty much one of the biggest Republicans in Washington right now, and you just don't say anything about it. And when they ask you about it, you just kind of like try to sidestep the question. Like they don't take responsibility. They don't take accountability. And I've only been into politics like fairly recent. I don't know if this is like a trend for them. Um, but you could definitely see it right now. Like they don't blame anything ever on themselves. They vote against the that January 6th investigation like commission.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. And
why?
how
Like
could you
what's the
not
point of
vote
that?
for that, man?
And I
Seriously.
mean, what was their excuse that, oh, it's in the past, we should, forget about it and move on? Or I've heard that, oh, well, it's going to be super partisan, like they're just going to make Republicans look bad. Well, I mean, you'll only look bad if you were fucking involved in it. Is that what they're afraid of? And it's just all these little things, but nothing happens to them, and that's why they keep doing it. They say all these crazy shit at these rallies and nothing happens to them because they're not held accountable. Um, so they realize that, they know that, they're self-aware that we could pretty much say whatever the fuck we want, and yeah, people on the left will be outraged, and they'll be like a news cycle about it, and then it'll just go away because
Yeah.
nobody in our own party cares enough to do something about it, to tell us, hey, you better like what the fuck are you doing? You can't be saying crazy shit like that. And you know they know that, and so they just keep doing it because they rile up that Trump base, that just that they're like knee deep into fucking QAnon and like these conspiracies. I've heard of what Taylor Greene has said at these rallies about, you know one of the things we're going to do is, we're going to find out who really won Georgia in the presidential election. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell? Like, what? And you just hear like this roar of a crowd behind her. And Matt Gaetz, he was talking about how big tech is like censoring Republicans, and um, he said they can't censor us, and they can't censor this congressman. And literally the next sentence he said, we we have a Second Amendment right in this country, and I think we should, we're 100%, we should be able to use it. Kind of implying like, if they try to censor us, we're gonna like fucking shoot them or something, like to these
Yeah.
big tech companies. You don't think some like nut job with like a safe full of guns is gonna go to fucking Google headquarters and start shooting them up? And then whenever that happens, people are gonna link it back to what he's saying, and then they're gonna be like, well, I didn't directly say, go shoot, all these big tech companies.
Yeah,
Like
but there
you,
were veiled threats there, and
right?
that's the problem.
But then nothing's gonna happen to them. Nothing will happen to him. He won't be indicted. He won't be, charged with, inciting violence, and he just go on living his life. And that goes for everybody. That goes for all of them. Kevin McCarthy is always talking about, you know, uh, like when they ask him about Biden, like, do you believe, he won this election fair and square? Like, uh, he'll kind of like admit it a little bit,
Right.
but then you see him like over here meeting with like Trump and in like Florida, and like having dinner with him, and it just like feeds into that like rhetoric of, you know, he's like the illegitimate president and stuff like why are you meeting with Trump? Like, what's the point of that? But because at the end of the day, he's still the leader of the Republican Party, and they know that,
Which is
like behind
so
doors.
odd. It's
But what
so
they
odd.
portray is that they're trying to move on from Trump. But like secretly, they're not trying. That's why they're still saying all this crazy shit to keep that base long enough for the next election, to vote for them,
Yeah.
to vote for whoever, they're going to have as a candidate. So they want to, I think they're playing like this kind of like two-faced game right now where, to the media and like, to the general public, they want to like show this facade of like, trying to move on from Trump. But then they say like these like little like, behind your breath type of things that kind of like it would like trigger the base like, oh look, you hear what they said, like, that means they're still on our side, like they still believe that, something's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, you don't see you see like McCarthy running to have dinner with Trump. You never, I don't think Chuck Schumer's ever ran to have dinner with Barack Obama. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's gone, and the Republican Party can't move on from him. But the thing is, dude, I saw McCarthy on the local news the other day, and they were asking him, "Is like, what about this January 6th thing?" And he was like, "Well, I voted against it, and I don't support it because there's two other inquiries into it, and they'll be reporting within weeks." If you look into that, no, there's not. It's just these things that they say that are just outright blatant fucking lies. And people are like, well, the reason we don't need the other one is because we've got two more, McCarthy said. But if you look into it, they're not really what he said they are. So then you've got that. You've got people who won't stand up to Trump. You got people who do stand up to him like Mitch McConnell, but he says things like, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene is wrong, but if anything's going to happen, it probably has to come from the House. If they're going
Yeah.
to do anything about it, it's somebody else's problem. And
And there's
McCarthy says it's somebody else's problem. And Greene, meanwhile, goes and has a fucking birthday party with tens of thousands of people riding around in a Hummer, waving American flag, talking about the Holocaust, all this fucking nonsense. And that huge base, she's got like a 500,000 followers in Georgia on Twitter. That fucking woman is dangerous.
yeah.
It's just that simple. She's dangerous because she represents this outlying lunacy. In my opinion, you can't say that having to wear a mask was like having to have a star fucking tattooed on you. That doesn't make any sense. She makes no sense. But the thing is, she drives that conspiracy mongering and paranoia, and that somehow makes people feel better that they believe things that aren't true. And I do understand it in some ways because it's just been, I've watched it happen. I've watched it unfold. So there is an explanation for it, but it's kind of sad what we're doing right now.
Yeah, because they're feeding into these people's like those deep like conspiracy theories that they believe, and it gives them validation to believe those things. If they
Yeah.
hear like a phrase or like a sentence that kind of like hints at what they think. When she says we'll find out who really won Georgia in the presidential election. All those people that believe in like QAnon and all this, stolen election shit, like that to them that's just like, oh, they're on our side. Like they know it's real too. So
Yeah.
there's no way I could be wrong. If these people in power believe it too, like then there's no way I can be wrong.
What
And it's
about
just
what about Trump? He's he's in flames right now, like with the New York Attorney General. I mean, they've convened a court on him, and what's going to happen if he's guilty? What's going to
they'll
fucking
just
happen?
say that the system was rigged against them to silence him and
Yeah,
all this like BS.
yeah.
So I
So
mean, there's really like no, like I said, for a lot of people, there's no like getting through to them. Like I don't think what it would take. I have no idea what it would take for them to like to see the light.
okay, so let's take
Like
that back. Let's
freaking
take
like
all that thought and go take it back to the guns. Think about it. How are you going to convince people that what they think about, the way they think about this weaponry is flawed? And we're not, it's like, I'm not telling you you're completely fucking wrong there, Jethro. But what I am telling you is when all these people are getting shot and when all these people, these mass shootings and all this violence and all these things that are happening, and it circles back. I need a gun to protect myself from the violence that's proliferated by fucking guns. And you got to stop that circle somewhere. And I don't know how to get into these people's minds and say, listen, it's just a matter of common sense, but their common sense dictates that I have guns in my life.
And I mean, like I said, for some people there is no getting through, and the only thing we can do is, pass legislature and pass laws and pass bills to, to kind of forcefully change society around them. And they probably won't ever change. And I think when it comes to like big societal changes like that, like changing the mindset of a whole, country when it comes to something,
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that you're going to do by convincing the opposition at the current state. It's something that's going to happen by, like I said, changing the laws around them, and then waiting for like generations to kind of catch up to them. You're not going to change, Billy Bob's fucking ideals, but, their kids might, or their grandkids might, because, you know, ideas could only go so far. And, yeah, they might pass it down to like their children or like their grandchildren.
Right.
But at some point, these kids, a lot of them, they start, thinking for themselves, and, a lot of people move away, or like they'll go away to college. And that's really when, they see like that there's other people that, they get out of that echo chamber that they've lived in their whole life. And
Good description, man.
they begin to like open their minds. And I've seen a lot of people that, they say they grew up like deep south, like super conservative households, and and all it takes for them is to get out of that, and it like changes their minds on a lot of things.
Yeah, you're
Because
talking to one. Yeah.
exactly. So it's one of those things where it takes time to make big changes like that, but those big changes are only made by doing the little things like passing legislation, voting the right people in office, and just chipping away at these things you want to change. I know it's not going to be like a flip of a switch overnight type of thing, but we have to start walking in the right direction, or else we're just walking in place and nothing's going to change. And I think we are doing that. I think we are taking steps in the right direction. When it comes to like the people that we're electing into office, they're a lot more when even like people like AOC, or like Bernie Sanders, like when was the last time that you like recall like House members being so like prominent in politics,
Yeah.
where they had a lot of influence, they had a lot of, AOC might have, just like one vote in the House, but her influence reaches far greater than that.
Yeah.
And, she worries a lot of Republicans on the other side, because they know what she's able to do. And, they know that, if her, quote, radical ideas get enough traction, like they're gonna, there's gonna be more and more people that, actually listen to what she has to say. And, there's gonna be some people that are gonna be like, well, that's not so bad. That doesn't sound bad at all. And, you don't have to convince everybody. You just have to convince enough people, just
Yeah.
enough to, pass the bill, or, vote them into office.
Well, I'm another one of those people. When Bernie was rolling and AOC was rising, I was in opposition to him. I was like, nah, that's too fucking much, too fast. And then the more I start to see and the more I start to listen, and then I hear that, Bernie Sanders won a lot of prelims, and he was just pushed to the side because, the states would, Hillary's our candidate, even when she lost a popular vote in dozens of states, including West Virginia, where I'm from. And you got to think, how fucking crazy is that these people have these good ideas and we just push them off to the side. I was one of them. And like, the longer I listen to AOC, the longer I listen to Bernie, I'm like, that's fucking, all that is reasonable. That's just, it's not radical. It's just reasonable that you would give people fucking health care. It's just reasonable that you would pull people out of poverty. It's just fucking reasonable that you would educate your population. But instead, we have these people like, You got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, just like they did in the past. No, they did not. No, they did not. We have helped one another for years, decades, centuries. We've assisted one another and helped out, and government's been there to help. And now all of a sudden, because capitalism has reached this point of this tipping point, it's like we have to support capitalism no matter what, at the expense of whoever it takes. We got to keep the situation as is, and we don't. We need to turn it around. And if it's slow, it's slow. But Lalo, we got to turn this shit around.
Yeah, and like you were saying, we're like at this tipping point, and I think, if I could like put on my little tinfoil hat for a little bit, um, the thought of that scares a lot of people in this country. I think a little on both sides, but mostly on the Republican side, because like I say, like almost every single episode, when it comes to Republicans, it's about money and power, and that's what capitalism is. That's what it provides. It provides capital, and with capital, you gain power.
Right.
Um, so to take that away from them, or to try to change that, to try to change, the whole system that's based on capitalism, and kind of like pull out the rug under their feet, they
Yeah.
don't like that. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people, free healthcare, we're like the only like industrialized country that doesn't have some sort of like universal healthcare.
Right.
Like, do people realize that? Like, we're the only country in the world like that. And people will say, well, like, go to Canada, go to England, like, see how it's working out for them. Like, I guarantee you it's working out better than it is for here. Like, I've seen videos of people asking like Europeans, like, how much do you think it costs to call an ambulance in America? And literally the first thing they say is, it's not free. You mean it's not free? Like, because to them, even the thought of that is absurd. Like, it's an ambulance. Like, it's supposed to save your life.
Right.
Like that's what it's meant to do. Like, why would you charge people for that? And and then I've heard people say, they'll get in like accidents and they'll be like, no, don't call an ambulance because I can't afford it.
Right.
Like, that shit's fucking like, what? How does that not click with you?
Well, I don't
That's
want
not
your
right.
blood on my velour seat, man. Come on. Does anybody have a tarp?
So
But
it's like,
yeah, you're right. It's like if you call 911, you're like, my house is on fire. Well, can I get your credit card number?
right. So it's like, it's these things like they're good ideas, like universal health care, trying to get as many people out of poverty as you possibly can. We're the richest, most powerful country in the world, and it's not even close. And we have millions of people living in poverty.
Yeah.
Like,
Millions
why
of
is
kids,
that?
literally millions of kids going to bed hungry. What the fuck? Really?
Like, how is that? Like, how is that a thing?
Uh,
you know and I mean, if you ask me, it all comes back to capitalism, because capitalism is about, like I said, capital, money, and power. And with that, you get greed. And when people become greedy, you know um, they disregard other human beings,
yeah.
because they don't care, because it's all about them. I don't care if I exploit you because I benefit from it. Why would I take, I make $20 million as a CEO. Why would I cut that in half to give you more money
Right.
as employees, when I could just keep those $10 million and, save them for myself, and, buy another yacht or something.
Yeah, and that's what, they have those excuses. Well, I'm doing it for the future of my family. Bullshit. You're not. You're doing
You
it to
know,
see how much you
and
can
it's
get before you expire.
right. And it's like, and once they do, like, where does that money go? It gets handed down to like the next generation of, like, their
Greedy
kid.
motherfuckers.
Yeah. So I really do believe, like you said, we're at a tipping point where, it's one of those things where, you always see it in like old, like medieval movies or something, where, like, the servants are like, have had enough,
Yeah.
and they like revolt and like storm the castle.
Yeah.
And I think we're pretty close to that, because a lot more people, especially young people, are becoming more like self-aware of the situation, and the climate and the system and the society that we live in. You know, I don't think socialism or like communism has been more popular in the United States than today, like in the history of the United States.
I agree.
You know, they've they've tried so hard to paint it as like, this big evil like Russian Chinese thing. And people are actually starting to listen to it and study it and learn about it and see how, why it hasn't worked in other places.
Right.
And because it's never been implemented the way it's meant to be implemented. um, you know some of that comes from greed from other countries, like if there's a lot of countries that have tried to implement socialism, but then some of those powerful people in those countries get greedy and they fuck it up,
Yeah.
or a lot of the times, most of the time, it's other countries um, influencing those countries that are trying to change. The United States does that every single time there's tries to be like a social revolution. When it comes to like Vietnam or like Venezuela, they interfere in in what they call the fight against communism.
And the
Because
domino effect in Vietnam. Yeah. If we
yeah,
let
because
Vietnam fall, oh my God.
yeah, and the tinfoil hat person to me says part of that is because if it succeeds in these countries, people will start. If it succeeds in any country the way it's supposed to like actually work, people will start to see like, oh shit, like that's better than what we have here, because there's a lot more poor people in the United States than rich people,
Well,
and it
oh my
it would
God.
benefit.
Yeah.
So it's gonna benefit, the that separation of the wealth gap would benefit a vast majority of people in this country, you know but it's hard to make that change because even though a vast majority of people want more money, want better healthcare, want all these things to better their lives, the few people that the very few people that have the money, they also have all the power. So it's hard to change it when there's when they have all this power and all this influence pushing back at you.
Well, you have a situation where the the powerful have the money, but they justify that they have the money because it's like, well, I I need this bank account because what if there's an emergency? And what if I need? And what if my family needs? And I need to take care of myself and my family. But they don't stop to think that, okay, if I took away all the fucking things that could be an emergency, like your health care, if your health got bad and it's going to cost you $1 million to get rid of cancer, okay, we'll just take that away. So you don't need that $1 million in the bank anymore, bud. Now what are you keeping it for? Well, what if this happens to me? What if my house burns? What if, and we justify our greed and we watch other people suffer and we say, well, they just didn't make the right decisions. And that's not true at all. We need to change the mindset of the rich to be, you don't need that much fucking money. You don't need more money than you can spend in a fucking lifetime. And whatever baseline that is whatever it is. But even when you implement socialism, even when you implement communism, you still have that class thing. You have the masses and the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, and you still have the fucking problems that you have. We need to change the way human beings think, and that is, Lalo, that's an impossibility. I don't see that happening. I don't see us ever as a world getting together to go, okay, we're a planet and we need to take care of our home. We need to take care of this planet because you'll always have the Chinese who are the worst polluters in the world. And they're like, hey, man, we got to make money.
Yeah. um I think it's very.
You just went dead, man.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, sorry. um I think it's like you said. um but I don't think it's impossible. It's just like I said, like everything, it's gonna take a long time. But you're right. when it comes to like history has shown us that regardless of what system, like economic system people live in, like there's always going to be like class division and
Sure.
something that separates people and creates divide. But I mean, when it comes to the economic systems that we think of today, uh, I think there's one of them that's a lot better equipped to guide us into that, what you were saying, changing the way humans think. And you could, it's simple, it's as simple as looking at the name of it. One of them is capitalism. It's in the name, like
It's capital. Yeah.
it's capital, like that's capital is about money and property and you know material things. And when it comes to socialism, it's about the people, it's about society.
Right.
And almost every issue we have in the United States can be traced back to socioeconomic reasons. And those reasons are because capitalism has failed in one way or the other. Uh, and with capitalism, like I mentioned earlier, comes greed. So we have to, and it's kind of hard to explain, but like you said, we have to change the mind of the rich. I don't think that's possible because when you become, that rich and powerful, like you don't want any of that taken away from you. You don't want, even if when they take some away, you'll still be rich and powerful. I think just the thought of, you losing for other people to gain, for in their mind, it's for no reason. Like they didn't work for what I have. Why should it be taken away from me and given to them?
Right.
I don't think you could change that, within those people. So I think you just have to, and it's gonna sound a little cynical and a little, this is what Republicans are always saying, like, oh, to be afraid of, like, you just have to force it on them. Like
Okay.
they're not gonna give away, their billions of dollars voluntarily, like, overnight. Like you have to tax them. You have to, close all these tax loopholes. Um, and you know, whether they like it or not, it's gonna benefit society and benefit people overall. They might not like it, and guess what? That's okay. And guess what? I also don't give a fuck if they like it or not. I care more about the average people because there's far more of those people than there are billionaires in the world or in the
Right.
United States.
Right.
If there's a billionaire sad because they took 40 or 35% of his annual income or of his annual gains, like cry me a river, dude. You're a fucking billionaire.
Cry me a
I care
river,
more
dude.
about the fucking poverty-stricken kids in like these fucking neighborhoods across the country that, like you said, they're going to bed hungry, they're starving. Some of them die. They're getting bad education. Growing up in these terrible neighborhoods. I'm worried more about them because it's like human suffering. Like you're promoting human suffering, and you're saying basically like you don't care. You know, and I don't think that's right for me personally.
Well, as I sit here, and it's not just the mindset of the rich that we need to change. It's also the mindset of the poor because it, I just watched a person who had nothing get a lump sum of money and had no idea what to do with it and just blew it. And that seems to be pretty normal because you can see it at tax time. You got poor people who get their taxes back and they had two kids and maybe they get a check for $5,000, $6,000 and they don't catch up their bills. They don't put anything in the bank. They buy big televisions and they blow this money. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the mindset of the rich man who's like, I don't want to give up what I have. And here's the mindset of the poor saying, I want to live like the rich man. So when I get this lump sum of money, I'm just going to fucking blow it anyway. And it's going to end up back in the hands of the rich man. So, and, I know that sounded person, not man. But the thing is, we are so geared towards capitalism that even our poverty stricken people are feeding into it. They're not trying to take care of themselves. They're just they want that feeling of being rich. I got me a big old TV and that makes me feel better. Well, what about your gas bill? And what about all the things that you really need to do and feed yourself better? And they're stuck in this loop of I want to appear to be better than I am. And the rich person who's guarded to keep that status, and everybody wants the same status, but we're not thinking about the rich person needs to say, I need to lower my status down to take care of more people. And the poor person I need to control myself and try to live a better life and try to look forward in time instead of saying, I got $30,000 right now, man, I'm going to fucking party. Stop doing that. So the whole culture, capitalism has poisoned all of us, dude. All of
Yeah.
us.
I mean, it's all we know. It's all we've ever
Yeah.
known.
Yeah.
When you live in a system for your entire life, it's kind of, it's like that thing that is odd gap that we talked about a while back, where it's kind of hard to know what things ought to be like when all you know is how things are
Right.
in your current life. So it would, and that's where I think the government comes into play. Giving people like the ability to, like the government would, pass these taxation laws and, increase taxes for these like super wealthy people. And, they will redistribute that wealth, in ways that, they can see the best fit. And, that sounds kind of, a lot of people kind of question that, like, well, how do you know the government's going to do the right thing? And what we also have to realize is that we are the government. Like, we have to vote the correct people into power, into office.
Right.
The ones that, we know are going to do the right thing, that we trust, that we believe in, because that's how our democracy works. It's crazy how most aspects of this country are democracies, except when it comes to the workplace. Most, if not all, workplaces here are, like super authoritarian. You have a manager, you have a supervisor, you have a boss.
Right.
Their decisions impact you, and your decisions don't impact them at all. They're your boss. They are above you. They are, they control your job. If they want to fire you, they could fire you.
Right.
And when it comes to everything else, it's a democracy. When it comes to voting, we're a democracy.
But what's
But
the
when it
percentage
comes,
of people that vote?
right now it's pretty low. But I
Yeah.
mean, like, that system is in place, for voting
Right.
for our government, but it's not in there for our workplace, for the way we earn our living every day. See, to me, that doesn't make much sense. Like, that should be the same across the board. Like, everything we do, in my eyes, should be a democracy, because that's the only way you're gonna get, like, truly, like in my opinion, like, true fairness.
Oh, I get it. You didn't take off your tinfoil hat. You need to take that off, dude.
You want to hear a super like tinfoily hat idea that I've kind of begun to
Yeah.
like adopt?
Well, yeah.
I think, like, the more I think about it, um, the more I think it should be a thing that's like a reality. And it's gonna sound kind of crazy for a lot of people. It sounds crazy because it's just a normal thing. Like, we don't even think about this for most people. Is the acquisition of private property. And when I say private property, I don't mean like if you buy a house, or like if you go buy, like, a TV or whatever. Like, that's personal property. That's, you live there, that's your personal property. But
Right.
what I mean in private property is these people that, they're super rich, they go buy, 5 houses, and then they just, fix them up and then rent them out,
Right.
and then that's like their passive income. And a lot, that has like such like positive like rhetoric behind it, passive income, like, oh, you don't have to do anything and you're just making money. You just, these people pay you rent and you make money. But just like the thought of that, like, you're capitalizing, you're exploiting people's need for shelter, for a roof over their head. Like, you're taking advantage that people need a place to live, or else they'll be homeless and probably die, for you to make money.
Right.
So, like, when it comes to like landlords, uh, or like you like even like huge like office buildings that like this one dude owns and he just rents it out to like a bunch of small businesses, you know, and like they pay him rent for like their office space.
Right.
Like even our building, at work, like we don't own that building.
It's owned by someone else,
It's
right?
owned by somebody else, and we just we rent it out. Like to me, that should not be a thing. Like if you like you shouldn't be exploiting other people's need for like living commodities that you need to survive, if that makes sense.
It does, but capitalism is exploitive. That's what it is.
Like rent should not be a thing. Like you should just be able to buy like wherever you live.
Oh man, yeah, I gotta say, in 1940, my grandfather bought a house and 6 acres to farm for $400. $400.
And I mean, it's
And
one of like I
now,
said, it's one of those things we don't think about because like like how common is it for like, oh, I need to pay rent this month, or like, oh, I can't do this, I gotta save up for my rent, or I'm late on rent.
you're right.
Like it's just part of society that we live in. Like we
It's
don't even question
part
it.
of our language that we don't question.
Yeah, and it's
Everybody knows what you mean when you say, fuck, I don't think I'm going to make rent this month. Everybody knows what that means.
yeah. So it's like, and I just want to say one thing because I know there's some people that think when it comes to like socialism and like social programs, uh, it means like you get shit for free, and like you're telling me, there's people that think, well, nothing in life is free. If you got something for free, that means somebody somewhere paid for it.
Yeah, I got that
Well,
last week.
like we all pay for everything. Like we all pay taxes, regardless of how poor you are. Even when you go buy a fucking Gatorade at the corner store, you're
Yeah.
paying taxes on everything. Everything, every single social program, every single thing the government spends money on comes from us. You know, the reason Jeff Bezos is fucking the richest man on earth is because he's fucking, we buy all this shit from Amazon. We pay taxes on him.
Yeah.
All his wealth comes from us. So whenever you tax the super rich, you're taking back some of the money that you paid to them. So nothing, I agree, nothing in life is free. And I'm not saying you're getting free stuff. I'm saying you're getting stuff that you should be entitled to because you worked for it. You work your ass off fucking, some people work, 60 hours a week or, like more than 40 hours a week, busting their ass. I think you should be rewarded for that far more than just your $15 an hour paycheck that you get.
I think so too.
Because to me personally, our productivity and our the value we bring to these companies and these jobs far exceeds the paycheck that we get.
But
We
somehow we have all these people out of work, and here's the guy working 60 hours a week or the girl working 65 hours a week, and the person sitting home because they can't get a job because it's more cost effective to work that fucker into the ground than it is to hire two people to do two people's job. That's the thing. Then so we got all these people who could be working and taking the burden off the truck drivers and the people that are working these fucking crazy hours. You could just hire another person, but you can't do that because then you got to pay taxes and you got to pay unemployment and this and that. So it's easier just to pay that guy a little bit of overtime and just work him to death.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be about that tipping point we're talking about, that that final straw is going to be when people realize, like when us like as a society realize our like actual worth,
Yeah.
and what we bring when it comes to like capital and what we bring when it comes to productivity to these companies that we work for. uh, you know a dude flipping burgers at McDonald's will make like, at least here in California, like close to 15 an hour.
Right.
I guarantee you he brings in more than 15 an hour of value to that restaurant every single day that he works there.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
They make millions of dollars daily, every single day. If not billions, across the world as a company, like, something, someplace like McDonald's. So, and we've been kind of like trying. We've been brainwashed to think, it's a minimum wage job. Like it's flipping burgers. It's, it's trivial. Like what? Why do you want, more money? Anybody could do that. But
No, I
what
I
they don't
agree.
real what they don't realize is like we bring the value to all these companies. Like we bring the true value, and by we I mean like the workers.
Yeah, and you said we got to close this up, and I'll close it with this, man. You said we're reaching a tipping point, and you're right. And when things all happen, and all these people realize, this has to stop. I'm glad I have a gun. I'm glad I have a gun because who knows what's going to happen when this collapses. I hope it's not in my lifetime. I would, eh, I'm not wishing anything on anybody, but damn, dude, when you talk about a society collapsing, when Russia fell, there wasn't a lot of violence in Russia because that's what Russian culture was. People lined up for bread and they lined up for food and they tried to get help and they helped each other. In this country, we're just going to fucking burn down and start shooting.
I hope that it's a social revolution.
Oh man, you and me both.
Because I mean, like you said, that's not very violent as opposed to other sorts of revolution.
Right.
But kind of like through our avenues that we have right now, whether it be like laws, government, um, to make the changes we need, or to make the changes we think will benefit us as a whole. You know, like I said earlier, if you're making a billionaire a slightly less rich billionaire, I could care less. I'm not gonna shed a single tear for anybody like that. If you're making $500,000 a year and you go down to 450, again, not a big deal. You're gonna be fine.
You're going to be fine. And you
But
just
when
gave
you
50,000 people an extra dollar that year. And if you keep doing that,
but when
seriously,
yeah, so if you're a super, like I said, super wealthy person, take a little bit more, you're gonna be fine. If you're a super poor person making $15 an hour and all of a sudden you start making 25, $30 an hour, guess what? That changes your life.
it sure does. But these people also need to learn how to handle that extra income.
And that they will. I mean, uh with time, because it's gonna be it's easier to handle it when it's steady like that. Like you were mentioning earlier, like all these people that win the lottery and shit and they go
Yeah.
broke like 2 years later.
Right.
Um it's kind of hard to handle like a big lump sum of money like that. But when you're like just continuously making like more money and actually able to afford things that you couldn't afford before, um
Yeah. You
I think
start,
it's a lot
if
easier to
you
manage.
implement it a little at a time, like, we don't, and we are doing that. I will admit, we're not jumping from $7 an hour to 15 overnight. We're doing it. Well, it's 10 this year, and 2 years later it'll be 12, and then another
Yeah.
year 14. So you're actually introducing it a little bit at a time. So education, self-education is going to come with that. In the beginning, when you start to have extra income, you spend it, and then as you have more extra income over a period of time,
You
and
start to save it.
you start to save it, and that's what happened to me. I caught up all my bills. Um, and then I tried to fix my credit score, and then when that happened, it changed my life to the point where, well, now I have a good credit score. If I can get some money in the bank, if I need something, and you start to think differently from that poverty mindset, which is like, I have to fucking survive this month. And I slowly went from that into, okay, how much money can I put in the bank this month? And it becomes that game. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but it's still at the same time, I wish I didn't have to think like, what if something happens and I get sick? I still have to think about things like that. And I don't think it's right because we all get sick, and it's the healthcare system capitalizing on the fucking inevitable is what's
Yeah,
happening.
you can't apply free market uh ideals when it comes to healthcare,
Right.
because people say supply and demand. Like if you're diabetic, there is no supply and demand when it comes to insulin. Like you need that shit or
You
else you
need that
die.
shit or you die.
So
Right.
whatever they set the price at, you have to pay or die. Those are your two options. So there's no free market fucking capitalism there. That's fucking exploitation and just pure evil in my opinion.
There you go.
When it comes to
Definition.
healthcare, like you either get it, you either pay for it or you die. That should never be a choice that anybody, in this world makes, let alone the United States.
We need to come back and talk about our healthcare system because we're almost at an hour and a half, and I'm sure we've bored the fuck out of some people. So
Yeah.
we'll come back and talk about it.
I could talk about the evils of capitalism for a long time.
Well,
And
that's
how it's intertwined in things we don't even think about. And
right.
like, so
You got your tinfoil. Take your fucking hat off, man. Well, it's been a good morning, buddy. We got to cut her short.
all right, sounds good.
Yeah. This has been the Thoroughly Wrong Project. As always, we may have said something to offend you. Please stop and think about what we said. I don't think anything's been out of the ordinary here. And as always, this has been Bob.
And Lalo.
And remember, the Thoroughly Wrong Project, it's built into the title. We could have been thoroughly fucking wrong, and that's our right. See you next time, Lalo.
Later, man.
Later. You have now experienced the Thoroughly Wrong Project with your podcast hosts, Lalo and Bob. We can now be found on Pandora Radio, Apple Podcasts, Podium Podcast, or by searching The Thoroughly Wrong Project to locate our YouTube channel. You can contact us directly by email at thoroughly-wrong@gmail.com or just leave a comment on any of our platforms. Until next time, thanks for spending your valuable time with us, and remember, always speak up and never be afraid to be thoroughly wrong.